Welcome back to the Proper Property Podcast. I am really excited today to say that I am joined by no other than Mark Fitzgerald. Mark's somebody that I've been following on social media for quite a while now, and it's quite an exciting time for me to be sat in a podcast studio talking to yourself today. So Mark's an award-winning property investor, a coach, and a founder of a results-focused platform which helps inspiring investors turn their knowledge into profitable property businesses. With over 2 decades of business growth experience, Mark now coaches, mentors, and inspires investors to take action, scale their strategies, and build sustainable portfolios. He also hosts another podcast. I wouldn't say we're rivals at this stage, would we? Podcast rivals. We'll
healthy rivalry.
Yeah,
healthy rivalry.
We'll compare views after, and then we'll decide.
Yeah.
So, Mark, pleasure to have you with us.
Luke, great to be on. Thank you ever so much. Well, it's a real honour and a privilege to be here.
Amazing. So I want to hear about your journey, not just your property journey, but I want to take us right back to before property.
Okay.
What was life like for you before you became a property investor?
So, go back now. I mean, it's 8, 9, 10 years. I was working for the Swift Group, who build motorhomes and caravans. And I mean, realistically, throughout my life growing up, I've lived in quite a few different areas and things. So originally I was born just outside of London. When I was 10, we moved to Bath, which is now why I sound like a farmer, because that's where I grew up. And now we live, just outside of Barnsley, between Sheffield and Barnsley and things. So for me, I've always, I was always brought up to really get out there, do hard work, achieve something in life, get your head down and just make it work. So as I say, I got a job at Swift, but I am actually a fully qualified and trained carpenter.
Okay, wow.
But I started working for Swift as a carpenter. I was building the furniture for the motorhomes and stuff. And what it was, just rolling back, me and my wife were in Bath, living there, and we couldn't afford to buy our first home. So we chose to move to up north because a friend of mine had 4 buy-to-lets in Bristol. He sold those and he bought 12 up north and semi-retired.
Well, it's a little bit cheaper up here.
Yeah, a little bit cheaper. That's it. And we're going back to like 2003 sort of time as well.
It's changed in terms of that price.
No, I know. So you get a lot for your money up here. And he, of course, did that. So I came up, saw what he was doing, just thought, well, I'll buy my own house. Didn't have the education or the knowledge to buy more, but got my head down, worked my way off the shop floor, up to charge hand manager, senior manager. And I spent 16 years in that role, I'll be quite honest with you, and I became miserable.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly miserable. I was, in my family life, it was great, got married, we bought a couple of houses, moved into I say a couple of houses, we had one house and then we moved into another house, but we weren't investors. We weren't investors.
What made you miserable? Was it boredom?
Yes.
Yeah.
I always felt there was more to life than just being on a hamster wheel, being a good little minion, so to speak, collecting a wage packet. Yep. But I also had it about me to be able to work my way off the shop floor. There was a lot of people that were just happy to turn up, do their job and go home. But for me, I wanted to build something tangible for myself.
Yeah.
It really did get to me, actually. So my home life was great, but if you've been there or, your listeners or people that are watching this have been there, it's that point where you dread Monday morning.
Sundays return.
Oh, yeah. But by about midday Sunday, I'd start getting snappy.
Yeah.
I'd start just being in a foul mood, thinking, who's going to turn up? Who's going to let us down? What problems are we going to deal with? And all of that.
Yeah.
So for me, something had to give.
Yeah. And I used to wake up on a Monday morning and my feet were twitching in bed because I was that anxious about having to go back to work.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. And that's no way to live.
Yeah.
And, I always say to people, if you're that miserable, do something about it. But it's one of those practice what you preach things, isn't it? So for me, it was a real case of I've got to get out of here. I've got to do something else for myself. And I probably spent 5 of those 16 years saying, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. Just never doing anything.
Yeah. So what was it that finally, when was that light bulb moment that you were like, right, I'm doing something? What was the caveat?
The big thing for me was 2018. I had to have an operation on my ankle.
Okay.
So I had dodgy ankles anyway, but one of it, I just needed a debridement. Now I've never really had a major injury, touch wood, I still don't. But that took me off my feet for a few months.
Okay.
So it was the first time I sort of stopped, took stock of everything. And I thought to myself, well, we've got a little bit of money. I've got a job, but if I lose the job, I'd have to go and get another job. It's not like I've got enough to, set me up or anything.
Yep.
And I was sat on a couch, actually, and I was just thinking to myself, if I now, like this, something happened to me and I couldn't physically work or do the job that I was doing, I'd be a bit stuffed, wouldn't I?
Yep.
So that was the moment I thought I need to start doing something, even if it's alongside my full-time job. So for me, it was like, right, well, what am I going to do? And at that time, I was looking at just buying a couple of 40 grand terraced houses with my sister. And I thought, we'll buy a couple of those. We'll sit on those for maybe 5 years. Hopefully they go up, get a bit of capital growth and stuff. And then we'll buy some more. So I just Googled how to make money in property because I had time on my hands.
I bet that.
And boom, this whole world opened up to me. And that was really the start of it.
Yeah. Very similar to myself. It was during COVID. We were furloughed. That's when I Googled that same.
All right, yeah.
Boom.
It's all of a sudden, it's these different strategies and there's ways of doing that. And it's just like, I initially, I have to say, I was like, that's got to be illegal. I've never heard of half of this stuff. But I like it. So I started, listening to podcasts, YouTube channels, reading the books. And I was just like getting out there and then networking with people that were actually doing it was all of a sudden my light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And that was when I thought, you know what? I'm going to give myself a good 12 months, throw myself at this 100% whilst working in my full-time job, if that's the case. But I'm going to make this happen. And I even put in my work diary that you get every year from the company, in December, I was handing my notice in. I'd wrote it in already, the date that I was handing my notice in. I never got there because I took voluntary redundancy.
I was going to say, did your wife know that you'd wrote this in the diary?
Yeah.
All right.
So my wife's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She just leaves me to get on with it.
Yeah.
She's got no interest in the property side of things and stuff like that, but she's there and supports me and everything. But yeah, I said to her, I'm going to build a business now alongside this. And once I've earned enough money through or getting enough cash flow coming through, I can leave my job, can't I? And I said, you're all right with that? And she said, yeah, fine. She says, you're miserable anyway. So she could see that something like that had to happen. Otherwise, she was fed up with the snappy Mark every Sunday.
I love that. I had a very similar conversation with my ex-missus. I love how you got that support.
Yeah.
And that belief. Mine didn't quite have that belief.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons we're no longer together, but that's a different story. But it's amazing that she had the belief instantly.
Yes.
And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. We've kind of touched on that 3 times today in other podcasts. I'm a massive believer in fate.
Yeah.
In what's meant to be, will be, and manifestation. Yeah. You wrote that in your diary. You manifested that was going to happen. You didn't get to that stage because something else that was already meant to happen happened, which probably made it happen a little bit quicker for you. Yeah. Again, that was meant to be, right?
Exactly.
So what was the first strategy that you did? Property investment? Was it a buy to let? Obviously, you mentioned the ones with your sister. Did they go ahead?
No.
Okay.
So rolling back, it was the start of 2019. This was the year it was all going to happen. I was going to make sure of it. But I knew, for me, it was like, well, I could buy a house, maybe buy 2 houses, if that, make £200, £300 a month. That's not going to change the world, is it? It's not going to light me up and it's not going to get me out of my job. So I needed to find some way of doing it quicker. So for me, it was rent to rent. Now,
big up rent to rent.
I learned rent to rent through different channels and things. And I have to say that a lot of it out there is so outdated. It's unbelievable. Rent to rent done correctly is very profitable. But you also have to run it as a business and you have to realize that not every deal is going to be a great deal. So you don't lock yourself into contracts and all of those. So for me, it's all about a business. When I'm property investing, and I you can tell me whether you think I'm right or wrong, but right now, for me, if you're going to be successful in property, you have to look at it as a business. Yep. Because the hobbyists, they're out of the water now with the taxes, the way everything is now. You're not going to make money if you just use it as a hobby. You set it up as a business, you systemize it as a business. And that was how I set out for the rent to rent. I didn't want to do rent to rent initially. I was looking at all the other shiny strategies. Yeah. But my wife just basically said to me, we need cash flow. How can you get cash flow in like the next 6 months or whatever? So for me, it was like, well, I'm going to do HMOs because I looked at serviced accommodation back then, SA, holiday lets. And for me, it was too up and down because as you know yourself, by doing serviced accommodation, it can be, so to speak, seasonal. You can obviously have contractors, but you don't really know where your next paycheck's coming from all the time, do you? So for me, it was, if I can get the right tenants in there with the right properties, at least I know that's what I should be making and that's what I should be earning. And I was going to go only for good properties. So I'm looking for investors like people like you that have put the money into nice HMOs, done them up already. I'll come and then I'll maintain it to that standard for you. And that was the business model that I put into practice, and it's done very well for me.
Yeah. So how long ago was that?
So that was the beginning of 2019. I started that. It took me 4 months from sending out my first letters and talking to people. In that time, I took voluntary redundancy.
How many no's did you get?
Oh, loads. And that's the other thing. That's the other thing. I probably put in about, 13, 14 offers.
Yeah.
Most of them, I will be honest with you, didn't always feel right. Yeah. So I was almost offering with the reluctancy that they'd never accept that because I don't really want that deal because the property wasn't to the right standard for me. I don't mind giving a place a bit of a lick of paint, change the old carpet. I mean, the most I've ever spent on an HMO investment rent to rent is £900.
Wow.
And that was to change a couple of carpets and to paint the hallway and things.
Yeah.
But I try and get them in good order, or I try and talk the landlord into doing them up and I'll maintain them.
And then you keep it at that level.
Of course I do. So I do put money into it as well. And that's why I say it's a business. So it's not like, I've got 3-4 properties, replaces my wage. Well, you can have systems in that. You can have maintenance in that. So you've got to get your numbers right and things. Yeah. But for me, it was all about just trying to separate myself from everybody else who was out there as well and doing that sort of thing. And I think if you do that, you put yourself in the best possible position, don't you? Absolutely.
So you started with how many rent-to-rents did you have before this redundancy came on the cards? None. So it really was.
Oh, yes. I'll tell you about that if you want. I'll tell you. So it was about February, March 2019. I already had it in the back of my head. I'm going to build a rent-to-rent business. So I was actually, don't tell anybody, printing letters at work. And my kids were doing karate. And what I would do is I would go to the karate. The kids would be, and it was a line of me and 2 other mums. Would wrap my letters up. So one would fold it, one would put it in the envelope, one would put a stamp on, and they loved it, absolutely loved it. So that's how we got started. You make it happen, don't you? Hundreds of letters these were. So they were like, I'd bring these big stacks, they're like, oh, we'll help you, I'll buy you a brew.
Brilliant, love that.
And so, February, they got all of us managers together. They said, we're going to make a manager redundant. Now, I'm not being big-headed, but I don't think it was going to be me. There was some other managers that maybe they were going to go first. Maybe it would have been me. Maybe they'd had enough of me. Yeah. But I thought that.
Maybe they'd seen your diary.
Yeah.
Or the printing bill.
He's going. Mind you, it would have been cheaper for them to let me go, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But so I just thought this is a sign. Like you say, this is an opportunity. And what I didn't, I got to that point and I was so sort of miserable that it was like a lifeline. And it was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret not doing this.
Yeah.
So
now or never.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's burn the boats and have a little go. And I looked at it like I was in a boat and I was going to make a jump for it, swim to shore, and shore was obviously getting deals and cash flow. And I thought, what's the life preserver in the meantime if you start to drown? Well, I'll just get another part-time job, but I'll continue to do this. But as going back to our conversation before, I came out of that, I rang my wife up and I said to her, they want to make a manager redundant. She was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, you know what? I want to take it. I want to take it. We'll have enough money for about 6-7 months if we pull in the reins, and I want to build this property business, and I'll give it 100%. And she said, do it.
Love that.
Do it. And I tell you what, well, I thank her forever for that, because that was the moment. All I needed was somebody just to back me.
Yeah.
And at that moment, my wife, Lisa, backed me. And and if you haven't got that, that's got to be so difficult. Yeah. But on top of that, while it's nice, that weight all of a sudden is on my shoulders of, I don't want to fail. I've got to make this happen, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. And even if it doesn't happen, I'll go and get a job. I can work anywhere.
That's what drives you.
Yeah.
That's your personal incentivization to make this work.
Yeah.
Because my wife's backed me 100%. So I've got to back myself now 200%.
Yeah.
Because you believe it'll work. Your wife now believes it'll work. That's going to work, right?
Exactly. Well, it's got to work. Yeah. It's got to work. And the biggest thing for me is I've got 2 sons, and I wanted to show them that if you set yourself a task and you commit to it 100% and you follow it through, you'll achieve it.
100%.
Because there's so much in this day and age now where people just have a go. I'll have a little go. I'll dip my toe in the water. You're never going to achieve anything doing that.
Yeah. So you've been made redundant.
Yeah.
Ooh. How long from that redundancy, your final paycheck, to your first rent-to-rent deal?
It actually took me 4 months to get my first deal over the line, but that was 2 deals from one landlord, because you don't need hundreds of landlords to have good deals. So for 4 months, I'll be honest with you, I don't recommend anybody does that. Do it alongside a full-time job. You know what I mean? It's easier to keep the money coming in. I think for me, because I'm quite a procrastinator, so I have to set myself targets. I have to really gamify things and force myself to do stuff because I don't want to A, let myself down, but B, there's certain things you've just got to get done. So basically, it took me 4 months of sending letters, of doing and negotiating deals and them falling through, and there was disappointments and there was all of that. And I remember having my head in my hands on the kitchen table saying, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but I'm determined. I'm not going to stop until something happens. Other people have done this. I can do this. I just need to meet more people, see more properties, and just, do more.
Did you start to get imposter syndrome?
Oh, definitely. So the funny one was people used to say to me when I'd left my job, what are you doing now, Mark? I'm a property investor. And I felt like such a fraud. When I said that, I'm a property, I thought I've only ever bought properties I've lived in. I haven't actually got a business that's making any money. I've got a business, but it's not making, a complete imposter. And I think that's one of the big things that can hold people back is they think they need to know or have all the answers to everything. And I was like that. So I talk to people, or I, going and speaking to agents, letting agents or estate agents, and I'd be like, normally, if I was buying a property, I'd walk straight in, residential home, no problems whatsoever. Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm a property investor and I'm getting nervous talking to the same people. And it's just like, well, what? Because it means more to you. But you think you need to know it. You don't need to know everything. Yeah. Now, you need to know channels to make sure you don't make mistakes. Yeah. But just be yourself and go and talk to people.
I find the estate agents don't know much.
No, they don't. It's amazing, isn't it? You start having a conversation with them, you're like, oh, I'm sure you would have known about that. Yeah. But they normally know, if they know any of the strategies, it's normally high level, and all they've got to say about those things is bad things. Yeah. Because they've normally dealt with people that haven't got a clue what they're doing. Yeah. Because if you know what you're doing, chances are you haven't actually named that strategy. You've just named, the sort of terms of how I'm going to do this deal. Yeah. Which is secret. So you don't go in and say, well, I want to do a rent-to-rent deal with you, or a corporate let. I wouldn't even say that. I let them. They say to me, oh, it sounds like a corporate let. Yes, very much along those lines.
Yeah, brilliant.
And that's what you do, isn't it?
It's about finding the pain point. Yeah, what is the pain point? Of course it is. Because once you found that out, you can tell them what the solution is. You don't really need to tell them what the strategy is. No. Tell them how you're going to solve that problem that the landlord or the seller has got. Yep. And then it goes from there. That's how we find it anyway. Yeah. Okay, so it's amazing that your friends or your previous colleagues say what you're doing now. I bet they don't need to ask now, do they?
No.
They just just go on.
Well, they come up to me now and say, I'm thinking of selling my house, Mark. How much do you think it's worth? I don't know. I say I can have a little look and find, I'm thinking about an extension. What do you think it'll be worth? And so
it's amazing how many questions you get.
It's crazy.
Like, I've got that written down in the back pocket. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing. So you've gone on to this fantastic business that you've now built and grown, and it really is. It's a pleasure to see what you've achieved online. But you've also now gone into education, coaching, mentoring. Tell us a little bit about that.
So obviously, I got educated myself. Made sure that I'm the sort of person. Give me a plan. Let me follow that plan, and I'll follow it to the T. Do you know what I mean? So, but there were certain things. It's like the old way of doing rent to rent was you find out a house that's run down. You offer basically the market value on the run down house. You put a load of money into it, and then you obviously get more rents. Well, that's a broken record. I mean, that's a broken way of doing things for me. So for myself, what I found was the way that I was doing things, people were noticing, and they were coming up to me and saying, "Could you help me?" And I had quite a few. The first time I got into coaching was a guy come up to me and he had 3 rent-to-rent deals, and they were shocking. Yeah, absolutely shocking. They were serviced accommodation deals, and he was losing money hand over fist. And he was just like, I need to stem the bleed. And I said, let's have a look at your contracts. So I give him the time of day. We're looking at his contract. I said to him, you've locked yourself into 3-year contracts here. Where's your break clauses?
No break clause.
No break. Well, he didn't know what he was doing, did he?
Yeah.
So anyway.
What's the break clause?
Exactly. So I said to him, well, basically, first and foremost, what is the market value? What rent are you paying, and what's the market rent? Just make them buy to lets. Stem the bleeding. Do you know what I mean? Stop what you're doing. Yeah, all right, you might be out of pocket with your furniture and stuff, but stem the bleeding. Anyway, as it happens, it actually, because they were down south, it paid a lot more to let the rooms out individually.
Right, okay.
So he actually makes 500 quid on a property now on those. Well, he makes a lot more now because he's got quite a big, because we changed his business.
He knows what he's doing now.
He knows what he's doing now. So it started with that, and he was just like, I don't expect your time for free. Whereas I used to help people, like you would do it yourself as well. You help a lot of people. But then you come 2 months later, how are you getting on? I haven't really done anything.
Yeah.
And I do find that when people put a bit of finance behind it, and I'm just saying, you give me a free training, I might look at it, I might not. If I'm interested, I will.
It's that incentivization again.
It is. If I buy something, I'll tell you now, I'm watching it and I'm going through it, and I'm going to do it. Or I'm not. But at least I will have gone through it. So, yeah, it just came that a few people were just like, could you show us how to do this? And I was looking at a lot of the stuff that's out on the market that people are being taught. And I've got quite a few, we're not talking, massive, a couple of handfuls of people coming to me have done deals and they just weren't good deals.
Yeah.
And I thought
We've had similar conversations on this podcast before with other people, and we're not going to name names that have done potential courses, education courses and stuff like that. And it's just not as great as it should be. Do you know if that makes sense?
For me, it's not real.
Yeah.
So what I try and do and what I offer is, and that's why it's warts and all. If you do we've got different trainings. All the trainings I've done strategies.
Yep.
And I've made mistakes.
Yep.
And it's cost me a bit of money and stuff, but I've learned from it and I've overcome it. And anything I put together or anything I try and help people with will include that. Because most people have said to me, well, what about that deal you did in Doncaster? That was a bit of a shocker, wasn't it? Yeah, my third deal. It's an absolute shocker because I didn't do my due diligence. I just thought, I know what I'm doing now. I've done a couple of deals and I broke my own rules.
Yep.
So I tell people about that deal and then how I got around it and what we did. And it wasn't, it wasn't great, but it still made me money in the long run.
Yeah.
Because I tweaked and pivoted it, but I should never have done it in the first place. And that's what I've tried to do now is to show people that it's not a get rich quick. It's not no money down deals or anything like that. It is going to be work and it is going to be painful at times. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to hear that, all you want to hear is the fluffy stuff of how you can sit on the beach, pina coladas, your essays all just run themselves or whatever you're doing. I mean, commercials, the buzzword at the moment, everybody's saying commercials so great, you get Costa or Starbucks in. There is so much red tape. There is so many difficulties in doing that strategy, but they don't tell you that on YouTube, do they?
They just tell you it's passive.
Exactly. Well, there's nothing passive about property, is there?
Nothing.
I'll tell you now, the only way you can make investing passive is to have a big chunk of money, me give you that chunk of money, you go and do all the work and then pay me back.
Yeah.
Then that's passive from my perspective.
100%.
The rest of it is work. So be prepared to do, and that's what a lot of people don't like, the work.
Yeah.
So cut a long story short.
I feel like they've been sold the dream of it's not work, it's passive income.
Yeah.
I'm doing this to get rid of the work because now I'm just going to have no work and my bank's just going to go boom, 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 boom. It doesn't work like that.
The biggest sort of myth is, work once, get paid for life.
Yeah.
No, don't worry like that. Business, it's a business. It's living and breathing property is, and it's always going to need a level of investment to maintain it as well.
100%.
So yeah, that was really how I got into it, was people were asking me. And in the end, it was actually, I was sending people to other people's trainings. And my wife overheard me on one of my coaching calls once. And she said, they want to work with you, Mark. Why don't you put something together and help them? And I thought, yeah, good point. Why not? So that's how we basically got into it.
So what I'm getting from this is that the Mark Fitzgerald brand is all down to your wife.
Pretty much. We're a team. We are a team. No, we are a team. At the end of the day, I always say I wouldn't be sat here if it wasn't for her and her support, because I'd probably not took voluntary redundancy for starters.
Still be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't probably. Well, I wouldn't. Well, our lives would have gone very differently.
Yeah.
I mean, myself and my wife moved away from Bath to sort of get away from everything and start afresh in our lives. And because in Bath, everybody knew what everybody was doing. It was the same old circles.
I'm not a fan of that.
No. I was a big boozer. I was out, partying a lot of the time and things, as you do when you're younger anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
But I needed to get out of that environment, and we got out at the right time. And as I say, we're a team.
Yeah. And you're based in Barnsley now?
Yeah, just in the outskirts.
Yeah.
In the outskirts.
Fantastic.
So I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Nice people. You're all friendly.
Yeah. We all try and be friendly.
Yeah. It's a lot more friendly than down south, I'll tell you now. I've got old grannies bashing into you down south.
A couple of clients in the SA management business that I have that are from down south. Lovely people, but not quite as friendly as us.
No, they're not. I mean, sometimes a bit too friendly.
Yeah.
They tell you a little bit too much. It's like, I didn't need to know that. But no, we love it up here. That's why we've made a life for ourselves there.
Fantastic. So we touched briefly earlier on, I think it may have even been off camera, about strategies and creative strategies.
Yep.
Yeah. I've heard you talk before, and I know you're big on creative strategies. Can you tell us a little bit more about anyone that's listening that don't know what I mean or what you mean when we say creative property strategies?
Yeah, I mean, creative strategies are like rent to rent. So if people obviously listen to this, they know that you guys use that as well. It's where you take on a landlord's property, you pay them a set fee, utilities and stuff. You take it on for a length of time, and obviously you make your margins by having it as an HMO or a serviced accommodation. Purchase lease options is another creative strategy, very similar to that, but you've actually agreed and locked a price in over a fixed term to buy the property.
So there's a nice exit for both parties.
And hopefully you've locked the price in now, and you get the capital growth as well in the future. So yeah, you can't guarantee it.
No.
But if you get that capital growth, because predominantly properties go up, so you just give yourself enough time and margin to do that. But for me, creative strategies, as you say now, I mean, I could go through and name them all, but you've got so many different ways of doing a deal. And you touched on it earlier on when you say you look for the problem. I've never done a deal with anybody who didn't have a property problem. Because that's where you get the best deals. And you help people. You don't take advantage of anybody. You make it a win-win for all parties. And I see so many people that have maybe one strategy. So maybe they're rent to rent, and that's all they're looking at. Or maybe they're lease. But all they do is they try and shoehorn that strategy into every deal that they're looking at. And then it falls over and they're like, well, it doesn't work. That strategy never worked. But if I believe now in this day and age, you have to have the full toolkit. If you have the full toolkit of different strategies. So I'm chatting to you and everything like that, and you're telling me you need the money now. Purchase lease option is never going to work, is it?
Absolutely.
Rent to rent might, if I give you that sort of fee over time, but predominantly you want to sell it. Now, if you're struggling to sell it, we could buy it off you if we can get it at the right price, or we could look to do an assisted sale, where basically, again, we lock the price in, we give it an uplift, and then we put it back on the market and hopefully sell it quicker than it would be done. But it's another way to help somebody. So having that full toolkit just means that sometimes I'll speak to somebody and it's just a strategy. I think I know the strategy and it's not a strategy I do. So I might be able to turn around to you and say, this might be right up your street, you know what I mean? And pass those things on. So it's all about having that creative sort of mindset, but don't feel you have to know it all at that first meeting, at that first viewing. It's very important to just get out there, talk to people, and then go away with that information and knowledge, and then work out what's the best way or the best route for this person. And sometimes for me, it is the best route is I just recommend you drop the price a bit and see if you can sell it. Because I can't help you on this one. And that's it. And it's just I'm a massive believer in what goes around comes around. So by helping somebody else, it'll come back to me at some point.
Amazing. So I've got another question, but it kind of may not be the correct question now, because you've just touched on it depends on the deal, what the strategy is. Every deal's different, so every strategy is different. But if I was to ask you right now in the UK market, what is the best strategy?
Wow.
It's a difficult one.
That is a difficult one. There's a few ways to answer that. There's a few ways. I mean, right here, right now, the market is brilliant. You know, we're beginning of 2026, and I'll tell you what, it's probably been the best marketplace that I've seen since I started investing properly. So the best strategy at the moment is a difficult one. There's a multiple different ways of answering that. One of the things I will say just before I answer that, and I'll keep it brief, is it depends on you. What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Because I could say to you right now, the best strategy is HMOs. I mean, you might think, I can't stand the thought of tenants and all
for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I could say that's the best strategy, but some people will listen to this or watch this and go, HMOs it is, don't want to do them, but that's what I'm going to do. And then they'll resent it and hate it. No matter how much money you make, if you haven't got a bit of passion or a bit of desire for it, you will end up hating it. But right now, I would say it's really quite creative. So purchase lease options is a good tool to use at the moment, and assisted sales we're finding very, very good. But as a strategy, if you want to have a relatively passive strategy, make good money and help people, I would say supported living. And back-to-back leasing. Is something that I'm majorly focused on at the moment.
Back-to-back leasing can be incredibly done well. And profitable. And I know from hearing you talk, and I know from hearing other people talk as well. The supported living is really, really good.
Now, don't get me wrong, because there's a lot of people out there as well giving false advice saying you're going to get all of these massive rents and everything. You can get them, but more often than not, you'll just get maybe market rent or more, but you'll get the FRI fully insuring leases, and you'll get a 5-10 year term on those. And that's where the value is.
Is that almost passive
That is
Is that almost passive income?
It's as passive as I've found at the moment. So I'm always looking for passive, and that's about as passive as I've found at the moment.
Wow, maybe it does exist.
It does.
Maybe
it does. Yeah. Well, you're still gonna deal with
of course
issues and stuff, but you can get a virtual assistant or a PA to do that.
Yeah, like, I love VAs.
Yeah.
Yeah, game changing in my business, game changing in my work life balance. To be honest, anyone that's not got a virtual assistant or a VA, get one.
Yeah.
Because,
even if it's just part time.
Yeah, it really does change. But when you do get one, do it right. Don't just give them ad hoc tasks. Give them a system. Systemize it, schedule it, and make it consistent. Because then all of a sudden, oh my God, I've got free time.
Yes.
The day-to-day stuff, the monotonous stuff. So I was massively guilty of outsourcing far too late.
Yeah, I was. And I think you do when it's yours.
Everything. Yeah, exactly. Everything was in here. And then when I realized that I now need to outsource, I'm like, oh no, I've got to get it all out of there. And I can't just give it to someone. No. I can't just speak it all out because they'll run away fast.
Yeah.
So I had to get it all out onto paper, systemize it, break it down into categories, and then train it out. It was a 6-month job.
Yeah.
But worth every second of those 6 months to do that. So my piece of advice for anyone listening, outsource.
Yes.
Sharpish. As soon as you can afford it, outsource.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you agree?
Oh, I hung on too long.
Yeah.
And I was getting to the point where I was trying to answer questions, trying to set up new properties, and it was just like something's got to give here. And I didn't want to give money away. I didn't want to employ anybody. But in my corporate job, I would have employed people straight away.
Of course you would.
But in my business, I was in my own way, my own biggest blocker. But I was the same, well, crikey, it's going to take me more time now. And for the first 3 months of I went through 2 VAs and then I got a really good one. First 3 months, I kept saying to myself, why am I bothering? I might as well just do this myself.
Doing it twice.
But the thing was, and that's when I got Loom. Yeah. And I started recording and talking over things and stuff. And it was great. And then I got to that one point where Charmaine, our VA, said to me, I've replaced the training for the Let's Safe, which is our referencing software. And she said, I was like, why? What's wrong with the video? She said, well, I just thought I'd replace it because you swore on it. And I must have clicked the button and gone, so it was brilliant. But we had one day where I knew it all clicked. And this is why I'm such a big advocate for getting people to help you and stuff. When it was reported that we'd had a tile that had come off the house, it landed on next door neighbour's car on one of our HMOs. So they'd knocked on the door and they were giving it all of this and all of that. She deals with the tenants. And basically, she said to me, we've had a tile's flown off through the wind. It's landed on next door neighbour's car. It's like, all right, we need to speak to the landlord then. She says, yeah, I've spoken to the landlord. He's checked his insurance and it says, because it's a freak thing, he'll have to go through his car insurance. I said, all right. I said, well, we need to get a handyman on the roof. She says, I've done that. He's already gone up there. He's taken pictures. I said, okay, so we're going to invoice the landlord for that then. And she says, yeah. She says, that's all done. I said, so what do you want me to do? She said, nothing. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. You've hit the sweet spot then.
Yeah.
And it takes time. And I would say, going back to your VA, treat them as a human.
Yeah.
Not just as somebody that I can just pass. They are people, so when we have our meetings, I say, how's your mum? How's your partner? How's your cat? She has cats. All of those different things. I sometimes send her a few little treats or whatever through the post and stuff. Yeah. They are they're so important to your business. 100%. They are so important to your business. And of course, you don't want them to leave.
No, absolutely
unless they're
not.
Rubbish. And then you get another one, which is nice and easy. But treat them as human beings and they'll work for you forever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I completely agree. And I think that goes on to what one of my next questions was, what's your biggest piece of advice for any up-and-coming new property investor, somebody thinking about going into property? I've kind of mentioned my bit of advice, which is outsource as soon as you can.
Yeah.
But if you could give one piece of advice to somebody.
So somebody that's completely new, coming into the sector, I would say take a bit of time.
Yeah.
Just take a step back, because it's all too easy to get caught up in the latest trends, the shiny pennies, as we were saying before, to be thinking, well, I'm looking at Mark. Mark's done well on rent to rent, so I'm going to do rent to rent. It might not suit you. Okay, it's like the commercial adverts, as I say, that they say, oh, passive income and all of this and all of that. They don't tell you it's difficult to get funding if you've got no commercial experience and all of those things that you should know. So just take a bit of time to understand the different strategies and then see what suits your personality and, of course, your portfolio over the long run. Yeah. And if you're thinking as a business, and I like to look at things, build it as a business that potentially, if I want to sell in the future, I could do. Now, if I did that, if I sold the rent-to-rent side of things, it would be to buy more from my own portfolio.
Yep.
But I would just say, take a step back, really have a look at the different strategies. Don't start chasing shiny pennies just because somebody's doing something. Really see whether it suits your needs, suits what you want. And then once you know what it is that you want, you've got a passion for it, obviously get yourself a bit of information, either meet people that are doing it, talk to them about it, get yourself educated in that, join a community that can help and support you, go to networking events, and then start to get yourself out there before you really put any money down and do anything that basically you could lock yourself into and regret.
Great advice. Great advice. What Mark said. You touched on networking events.
Yeah.
I'm not, this is the wrong word. I don't enjoy networking events, but I understand the importance of them. And I'd go to them. And every time I've gone to a networking event that I didn't want to go to because I don't enjoy them, I've left with great context.
Yeah.
With a new couple of people that I'm potentially going to meet again, have a chat to. I've learned something, and I've always left thinking, so glad I went.
Yeah.
So glad I went. I don't know do you feel a similar sort of thing, or do you love the networking side of things?
I don't love networking, believe it or not. I do like talking to people. I like meeting people, but I gamify things as well. So if I go to a networking event, I'll set myself a target. I want to meet 10 new people. I want 10 new contacts to come out of there. And then it doesn't matter what I do at that networking event, because it's easy to just talk to the same people.
Of course it is, yeah. You see someone.
But it's business. I treat it as a business. So it is a business event. So, if there's a networking event, majority of the time, you won't see me drinking alcohol, you won't see me eating. Yeah. Because those are two things that can make a networking event and wash it out as a waste of time. If I'm taking time away from my family, I want to make the most of it. And that is nice to get those connections and things. But it is important. But I would say there are good networking events and there are mediocre networking events as well. So some networking events, they don't really get a lot of time to network.
No.
So be mindful of the fact that when you go to a networking event, you want to be able to meet the people in the room and not just sit there and listen to one or two people at the front. If you get an opportunity to stand up, even when I first did it, the knees were knocking. I was nervous. You get a 20-second pitch, use it. Even if you've got no properties, just use it, because you meet everybody in that room meets you while you stand up and do that 20-second pitch. Okay. And you just don't know who's in that crowd. There could be somebody, a multimillionaire that doesn't want to do anything themselves, just wants to give their money to somebody, but they don't know you because they never met you. Whereas if you've stood up and talked about what you're interested in, what you're trying to achieve, without trying to sell to people, it's a great tool. I mean, and that's why businesses still do it.
And I found that very similar to social media as well. I've met people at networking events and they've known my name because they've seen me on maybe Facebook or Instagram. And we don't have to have that, hi, nice to meet you. We've already had that. They already know me. They already know what I do. And you're almost 3 steps ahead, which is great. And I know you're big on social media as well. If anybody does want to follow along with yourself or see what you're up to on social media, let them know into that camera where they can find you and what you do.
Well, Facebook is just Mark Fitzgerald. You'll know it's me, blue tick and everything, smiley face. Instagram's Mark Fitzgerald. I think it's entrepreneur, Mark Fitzgerald entrepreneur, all as one, because people kept making scammy accounts and stuff. And I had an underscore in it, so I had to change it from property. So follow me there, LinkedIn as well. But do connect, because I'm always happy to connect with people. Your network is your net worth at the end of the day. I know it's a cliche. Of course, we have the Property Unleashed podcast as well, which has a new episode every Thursday. And I always believe you've got to get out there. You've got to network with people. You've got to connect with people. And the more hands you shake, the more money you make at the end of the day. So get out there and shake as many hands as possible.
I completely agree. Listen, Mark, I've just looked at the time and we're 45 minutes into
this. Are we? Sorry.
Would you believe? So I will wrap this up, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. As I say, I followed your journey. I followed you on social media, almost in awe and thinking that's where I want to be almost. So it's an absolute pleasure and honor to sit across from you just now. I'm sure people listening have really enjoyed your insights and your advice. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure. And what you and Johnny are doing as well is amazing stuff. I do keep tabs on you guys as well. So just keep doing it. And you know where I am if you need any help.
Lovely to hear. Thank you so much, Mark.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.